I just had a blast with the $20,000 you saved up recently after returning from a 7-day overseas trip. My mother-in-law, Isabella, called me with a triumphant tone. Saved money, 20K. What is she talking about? I have no memory of 20K as a freelancer. I indeed have some savings for emergencies, but that's just in my bank account. I don't keep such large sums on hand, and my banking card is right here. Normally, no one else could withdraw such a large amount. Anyway, you did give it to me, so I took it from the sideboard drawer. You guys are rich, it's fine. What I don't understand, but it seems you had fun. Thank you. Count on me for the next time. After leaving these words, the call ended. 20K. What money could that be? This question was answered when Anthony returned home. Ah, so that's what it was. A month later, multiple calls from Isabella came in. I completely ignored them, but when I checked, there were over 80. It's baffling, but it's her own fault. As I was looking at my mobile phone screen, another call from Isabella came in. I intended to ignore it, but eventually answered due to her persistence. Hey, what do you think you're doing? What does she mean? She's reaping what she sowed. Isabella's shrill voice resounded through the room from the mobile phone speaker. My name is Scarlett. I'm a 32-year-old freelance jewelry designer. I want children, but I'm too busy with work. My husband, Anthony, is the same age as me. He originally had a corporate job, but now he supports my work as a manager. When we married, my designer work was still sparse, and we relied on Anthony's earnings. But as I approached 30, my work stabilized, and I needed management for my schedule. It looks tough. Can I help with anything? Anthony, in a decent position at his company and expected to advance bravely, quit to become my business partner. With Anthony's management, we now have deals with famous international brands. Even we as a couple have our troubles. It's Anthony's mother, Isabella, who lives alone at his family home. Isabella believes we're living a luxurious life and often comes asking for money. You always seem to be living so lavishly, I'm jealous. As a jewelry designer, I'm often invited to new product launch parties or dinners with company executives. For me, it's part of my business activities, part of my job. But to Isabella, it seems like nothing more than leisure for us, and she demands the same lifestyle for herself. I want to throw a party for my friend soon. Can you give me some money for it? Of course, I can afford to give her money just because she asks. It might look glamorous, but it's costly, and there are many business obligations I can't refuse. We're not living in luxury. This is all part of our work. Dressed up beautifully, eating at expensive places, I envy you. She says this with a hint of sarcasm. Isabella just doesn't seem to understand. While I keep refusing Isabella's requests, Anthony, being her son, sometimes gives in and hands her money. If giving her a little money keeps her quiet, then it's a small price to pay, he says. For Anthony, it's easier to give her some money than to deal with her interrupting our work. But Isabella's demands only escalate. It's left both of us at our wits' end. I want a new dress for an upcoming gathering I've been invited to. Just the other day, Isabella came over and pestered Anthony. A dress? Wouldn't a two-piece suit work? We've been asked to buy clothes before. There might be cheaper options, but what Isabella wants is certainly not cheap. It's a fancy party. Everyone will be dressed up. I can't be the only one in old clothes. Isabella makes a fuss. I think proper attire, old or new, shouldn't matter. Oh, speaking of dresses, I need a matching bag too, so I'm counting on you with that. Isabella left. Anthony had set up a credit card in Isabella's name because of her frequent money demands, telling her to use it for her expenses. At first, she overspent and got warned by Anthony, but she showed no sign of changing. Anthony asked her to at least report before making big purchases, so she began to tell us what she would buy, but it continued like this. Once she said, "I found this beautiful ring and just had to buy it." Sorry for the after-the-fact notice, and the bill was astronomical. If you're going to spend like this, Can you return the card? We can't afford to pay at all. The card was in Isabella's name, but Anthony was the one paying the bills. Isabella seemed to think having the card meant she could buy endlessly. A credit card isn't a magic money dispenser. What you spend must be paid for. Since the money wasn't coming directly out of her wallet, Isabella kept using the card. So Anthony decided to put a limit on her card spending. What the heck? I couldn't pay for my shopping the other day. Why, Isabella stormed in, complaining, "We're struggling with the payments because of your overspending, so we've lowered your monthly limit. It's still enough, right? Just because you say that, you too are still dressing up, going to fancy places. How is what I'm doing any different, Isabella? That's part of our job. If that's a job, then what I'm doing isn't any different. It's unfair that only you two get to have all the fun. The product launches and parties often take place in luxury hotel event halls or restaurants, but our attendance is for work purposes. To Isabella, it seems like we're just dressing up and having fun. Still, since putting a limit on her credit card, she seems to have quieted down a bit. Sometimes Isabella comes to our house and seems to complain about something to Anthony, but for a while, life went on without major issues. As the end of the year approached, there was a change in my work. A foreign brand manufacturer approached me with a proposal to expand business dealings by moving our base overseas. I was over the moon with excitement. If this worked out, I could join the ranks of top-tier designers. Anthony, handling it as my manager, said, "It's a chance we have to take. Right, opportunities like this are rare. But then, I'm worried about Mom. She might even say she wants to come with us. Given Isabella's past behavior, it was a plausible concern. It would be wonderful to live overseas. I want to come too. We told Isabella about it. That weekend, she said, just as we predicted, we're going there for work. It's not going to be a leisurely life." Anthony tried to explain, but Isabella wouldn't give up. "You're trying to trick me. You plan to live even more lavishly there without watching. We're not moving there permanently. We'll come back after our work settles down overseas. You're saying that, but you're planning to leave me behind, aren't you?" Exhausted by this circular argument, both Anthony and I were tired. "Okay, we can't take you with us, but how about we pay for a week-long trip for you instead?" Anthony suggested, worn out from convincing her. "Really? Are you sure? We'll cover your flight and hotel, but the rest is up to you." "Yay, thank you." Isabella left, half happily, but the peace didn't last long. A few days later, while Anthony was busy with the overseas move arrangements, Isabella visited our house. "Hey, Scarlett," she said. "Anthony said that, but I want to shop over there too. Can you give me some money?" "What about the card that Anthony gave you?" I asked, knowing there was a card she was supposed to use. "That's the thing. Anthony finally took it away from me the other day," she confessed. "It seemed she had been admonished for overspending and had it taken away. Maybe he was worried she'd misuse it with different currency rates overseas. I thought, but I didn't have such money on hand either. I can't give you money without Anthony's approval," I explained. "Can you ask him?" she pleaded. "It's no use asking him. That's why I'm asking you." Isabella left, raising her voice. Over the New Year's, Isabella went on a 7-day trip abroad. I assumed Anthony had somehow managed the money. However, upon her return, Isabella revealed an unbelievable truth. The day Isabella returned, I received a call on my mobile. "I'm back, it was so fun." Isabella excitedly shared her sightseeing and dining experiences, even though I hadn't asked. And I overbought souvenirs, couldn't fit them in my suitcase, so I had them shipped from there. "Can't wait for them to arrive." "That's nice," I replied, feeling a bit fed up. "Thanks to the money you saved up, I had a blast." "Thanks." "Saved up money? What are you talking about? I had no recollection of such money." "Sure, I had some savings for business emergencies, but that was in my bank account, and Isabella couldn't possibly withdraw cash from it. You really didn't notice. You're surprisingly oblivious, despite what she said. I had no memory of it. I found it in your house's sideboard drawer. $20,000, Isabella revealed. $20,000? What money? Why should such money be there? I couldn't imagine us keeping cash at home, especially not such a large amount in a drawer. Confused, I said to Isabella, I'm not sure what money you're talking about, but if you took it from our house without permission, that's theft, even if you're family. Do you understand? That's why I'm telling you now that I used it, Isabella said nonchalantly, unapologetically. I have no idea about this money, but if you took it and used it without saying anything, it's a crime. And if it was something Anthony had set aside for an important deal, it's even more serious, I said, recalling that there hadn't been any disruption in our business dealings or payments while Isabella was on her trip. You two live so extravagantly, so why can't I have a little of that? Think of it as doing a favor for your parent. It's not a big deal, right? Such self-entitled reasoning. It's one thing to take money from her son and his wife, but this is not how someone should act after taking someone else's money. I'm glad you enjoyed your trip. I'll ask Anthony about the money when he gets back, I replied, still unclear about the whole situation. Anthony will understand. After all, I'm his only mother, and $20,000 isn't much to him. All right, I'll pass the message along. I was astounded at Isabella's lack of awareness. Please tell him that. Thanks. With that, she ended the call. Still $20,000 in cash at home. What was the money for, Scarlett? Do you know about the money I left in the drawer that night? Anthony returned home with a troubled look and asked me 10 days ago. I withdrew it from my bank account. It's gone now. It was you keeping such a large sum in a drawer. Didn't you think it was careless? I needed cash immediately for an urgent payment. Do you know anything about it? It can't be that you, Anthony, looked at me suspiciously. No. Today Isabella called, saying thanks for the $20,000, had a blast with it. I didn't understand what she meant. What Mom did, so it was Anthony's money after all. But what was such a large amount meant for? Hey, if it wasn't for a business payment, we've been doing bank transfers for a long time, right? Why cash all of a sudden? I understood it was Anthony's money, but still didn't get the whole picture. So Mom took it without saying, then it's her fault. What do you mean? I was still puzzled and asked Anthony back. Anthony started explaining why he had left such a large sum at home after limiting the credit card's amount. Isabella had secretly been borrowing money from various sources. This included payment on consumer finance cards and credit cards she had secretly opened. When Anthony found out, he took all her cards and prepared the cash to repay Isabella's ballooning debt. Although if I gave her cash, she'd spend it herself, so I planned to pay the institutions directly. A bank transfer would leave a record in our accounts. Anthony didn't want too many records in our bank accounts for the sake of trust with our business partners and bookkeeping. That's why he decided to cash it out and pay individually. Supporting Isabella's overseas trip was like a parting gift, as we wouldn't be able to take care of her like before after moving abroad. So that's what it was. What will become of Isabella now? Debt collection notices and payment demands will probably start coming soon, but since she spent it herself, there's nothing we can do. Anthony said nonchalantly. A month passed, and as I was busy packing for the move, Isabella's calls to my mobile phone kept coming. Anthony had said not to bother with her, but the calls were too frequent to ignore. When I counted, there were as many as 80 almost every day. It was just enough to make me concerned. Just as I was thinking about it, my phone rang again. Isabella, hesitating, I missed the call, but soon it rang again. I ended up answering. Why aren't you answering my calls? Isabella's voice sounded almost like a cry. I'm sorry, I've been busy with moving preparations. What's wrong? I tried to calm down and listen to what she had to say and to hear Isabella's side of the story. It's not just what's wrong. They're asking for money payments almost every day. It's too much. What about Anthony? You contacted him, right? He seems to be blocking my calls. I can't get through to him at all. Scarlett, you're my only hope now. Please help me." I was surprised that Anthony would take such a drastic step with his own mother. If he had paid off Isabella's debts with the money he had prepared, the situation wouldn't have happened. It seems Isabella is now inundated with collection letters from finance companies and consumer lenders. The collection calls are nonstop, and she seems helpless to do anything about it. I had never witnessed such a scene before. It was something I thought only happened in dramas. I'll mention it to Anthony, but I can't say what he'll do. A mother in trouble, it's a son's duty to help, right? Please ask him for me. Okay, with that, the call ended. We need funds for our business expansion overseas, and we can't afford to help Isabella. Besides, it's her own fault for using the money Anthony had prepared to pay off her debts. She called you? Just ignore it. When I told Anthony about the call after he returned home tired, he dismissed it coldly. I had planned to sort things out before we left, but she wasted the opportunity herself. That's true. The money was originally intended to clear Isabella's debts. She used it for a lavish trip instead, leaving no room for excuses. Despite continued calls from Isabella, I set her number to block, just like Anthony, though I wish I could help her. Being Anthony's mother, there's nothing I can do if he's decided to ignore her. Meanwhile, the day of our move overseas was drawing closer. I had to finish packing. As I looked around the still cluttered room, I thought, apparently, Isabella ended up selling her house to pay off her debts. In addition to the $20,000 that Anthony had intended to repay, she seemed to have hidden more debts. The amount was so large that even after selling her land and house, she couldn't pay it all off. The total balance was unimaginable. Hey, our family home, it's gone. Are you okay with that? How can I be okay? But there's nothing we can do. Anthony looked somewhat sad. Losing the house where one grew up must feel like a great loss. Having lost my parents' house early, I understood the loneliness of losing one's family. But unlike me, Anthony lost his place to return to because of his living mother. I can't even imagine how that feels. Isabella is now living in a cheap apartment, struggling to repay the remaining debts with her part-time job. At her age, it must be hard to find work. I feel a bit of sympathy for her. However, the consequences of her own spending led to this. So she's to blame. Even for the elderly, they must take responsibility for their actions. My business is going well overseas, and the move has brought more inquiries from other brands. I'm getting offers from unexpected places, something I couldn't have imagined back home. It's all very appreciated, but I'm so busy I barely have time to sleep. Despite being overseas, I don't have the time to explore. Anthony is also a busy man in everything. At this rate, having children is still a distant thought. I ponder this as I gaze at the foreign